The keys jingled in my hand as I stood on the front steps, heart racing with the kind of joy you can only feel when a decade-long dream finally comes true. My dream home, my fresh start, my victory. I'm Julia, and this was supposed to be the moment everything changed. Quite the property you've managed to snag here, a familiar voice drawled behind me. My blood ran cold. I hadn't heard that voice in 5 years, not since I'd cut ties with my toxic family. I turned to find my Aunt Tricia standing there, her son Jalen smirking beside her. Behind them, a silver-haired man in an expensive suit clutched a leather briefcase. Percy, my grandfather's old lawyer. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my hand tightening around the keys. Tricia's red lips curved into a predatory smile. "Oh, sweetie, did you really think Grandpa would let his estate slip away from the family so easily?" Percy stepped forward, opening his briefcase. "There's a loyalty clause in your grandfather's will that you seem to have overlooked. Section 7, paragraph 3 specifically states—" "That's impossible," I cut in. "I reviewed everything with my lawyer." "Clearly not thoroughly enough." Percy handed me a document, his expression almost pitying. "The estate, including this property, remains under family control." "I'm afraid you'll need to surrender those keys." "You can't be serious." The words died in my throat as I heard the rumble of engines. 2 moving trucks pulled into the driveway, Tricia's monogrammed furniture visible through the open backs. "Oh, but we are," Tricia said, plucking the keys from my shaking hand. "Welcome home to us." 3 days of sleepless nights and endless calls to every lawyer in town had gotten me nowhere. The clause was real, or at least real enough to hold up in court. But something felt wrong. My grandfather had always been meticulous, transparent. This hidden clause reeked of manipulation. I found myself parked outside his old estate, now empty and waiting to be sold. A figure emerged from the gardener's cottage, Audrey, his former housekeeper. She'd practically raised me during my teenage years. "I wondered when you'd come," she said, wrapping me in a warm hug. "I heard about what happened." "Did you know about the clause?" I asked, following her inside. The cottage smelled like cinnamon and old books, just as it always had. "Your grandfather never mentioned any loyalty clause," she said, putting on a kettle. "And believe me, we talked about everything." Tricia and Percy showed up with ironclad documents. "Percy!" Audrey spat the name like it was poison. "That man spent more time with your grandfather in his final weeks than anyone. Always closing the study door, always whispering." My heart skipped. "You think something happened to the will?" Audrey reached under her sink and pulled out a dusty box. "Your grandfather knew they'd try something. The night before he died, he gave me this. Said to keep it safe until you needed it." Inside was a leather-bound journal and a USB drive. "Your grandfather left you more than a home, Julia," Audrey said, her eyes fierce. "He left you a secret they won't want you to find." My hands trembled as I opened the journal to the first page. The journal entries painted a dark picture. Page after page detailed Tricia's schemes. Borrowed money that was never repaid. Mysterious changes to investment accounts. Elderly neighbors pressured into selling their properties below market value. "Look at this," I said to Audrey, pointing to an entry from 3 months before his death. He wrote about Percy visiting late at night, insisting on will modifications. Audrey nodded grimly. "That's when things started changing. Your grandfather became paranoid, started hiding documents. I plugged the USB drive into my laptop. Folders appeared, meticulously labeled by date. The most recent one contained a scan of a property deed, dated 2 weeks before his death. "Oh my God," I whispered, scrolling through the document. "He transferred the property directly to my only honest heir before the will was changed." "Keep reading," Audrey urged. My hands shook as I opened the next file, a video recording. My grandfather's face filled the screen, looking tired but determined. Julia, his voice crackled through the speakers. If you're watching this, they've made their move. I knew Trisha would try to manipulate the will. That's why I've prepared a separate deed. You'll find it registered under trust number 84C7B at the county office. Audrey squeezed my shoulder. He always said you were the only one who never asked him for anything except love. I was about to respond when my phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I know what they did to you. I can help. Meet me at Riverside Cafe tomorrow at 2. Angela, my cousin, Angela, the family's other black sheep. Maybe I wasn't as alone in this fight as I thought. Angela sat across from me at Riverside Cafe, nervously stirring her untouched coffee. Tricia did the same thing to me last year, used some made-up clause to steal my inheritance. I was too scared to fight back then, but I've been gathering evidence. Before I could respond, a familiar voice cut in. Well, this is an interesting reunion. I looked up to find Calvin, my ex, standing at our table. 5 years hadn't changed him much. Same confident smile, same developer's sharp suit. Mind if I join? He asked, already pulling up a chair. I couldn't help overhearing. Property disputes are kind of my specialty these days. Angela tensed, but I waved her concern away. Calvin's one of the good ones. Usually. He laughed. I heard about your situation. Actually, I've been looking into it. That property has some interesting history. What do you mean? I leaned forward. The zoning changes Trisha pushed through last year, they weren't exactly legal.
And Percy's been filing some suspicious paperwork. Angela pulled out her phone. Look at this email chain I found. Trisha and Percy were planning this takeover months ago. Calvin's expression darkened. They're moving fast. Tomorrow they're filing a Form T22J at the courthouse. Once that's done, reversing the property transfer becomes nearly impossible. There has to be something we can do, I said. Maybe there is. Calvin pulled out his business card, scribbling something on the back. Meet me at this address tonight. Bring everything you have. The journal, the deed, everything. Why help me? I asked. His smile turned grim. Let's just say I owe Trisha some karma of my own. Calvin's office was a war room of documents and legal codes. He jabbed his finger at a dusty property law book. Here's our weapon, Section 453. Property transfers made under fraudulent conditions or undue influence can be reversed through immediate quiet title action. In English, please, I said, rubbing my temples. We can void their claim if we prove the will was tampered with, Angela explained. But we need solid evidence and multiple witnesses. My phone buzzed, a text from Audrey with photos of more documents she'd found. Got it. Audrey's ready to testify about Percy's late-night visits. Perfect. Calvin started typing furiously. I've got contacts at the zoning board who'll confirm Trisha's illegal maneuvers. Angela's emails prove premeditation. A notification popped up on my phone. Trisha's social media post about her upcoming housewarming party. My house, my dream. Her party. We need to file before that party, I said through gritted teeth. Already on it. Calvin handed me a stack of papers. Sign these. We'll file first thing tomorrow. Angela's phone chimed. Jalen just posted photos. They're already renovating the house. Let them waste their money, Calvin said with a grim smile. Once this hits, they'll have nothing but contractor bills and legal fees. I signed the last document just as midnight struck. In less than 12 hours, Trisha's perfect housewarming would become her perfect nightmare. One more thing, Calvin warned, sealing the envelope. Your mother RSVP'd to the party. She sided with Trisha. Of course she had. Some betrayals you could always count on. The courthouse steps were cold under the morning sun as I watched Calvin emerge with our filed paperwork. "It's done," he said. "Now for phase 2. Back at his office, we coordinated our final moves. Angela called the process server while I briefed Audrey over speakerphone. "Everyone knows their parts?" Calvin asked, passing out copies of the original deed. "I'll arrive first," Angela said, checking her phone. "Already got my invitation. I'll record everything. I'll bring the original journals," Audrey added through the speaker, "and the USB drive." My phone lit up with a text from Trisha. "Saw you filed some paperwork. Cute. Hope you're not planning to crash my party. Security will be tight." "Security?" Angela's voice wavered. "Don't worry," Calvin said, showing us his phone. "I just got us all added to the guest list. My contractor's company is handling the renovations. Trisha doesn't know we're connected." A knock at the door made us jump. My mother stood there, her expression cold as winter. "Julia," she said, stepping in uninvited. "Always causing trouble. Always thinking only of yourself." "Mother, you're just like your father," she spat. "Never satisfied with what the family gives you." "What they take, you mean?" I corrected. She turned to leave, pausing at the door. "You always were a selfish girl. Don't bother coming tonight. You're not welcome." After she left, Calvin squeezed my shoulder. "You okay?" I straightened my spine. "Perfect. Nothing like a mother's rejection to make revenge taste sweeter." Angela raised her water glass in a mock toast. "To family." "To justice," I corrected. The party was in full swing when I walked through my front door. Yes, my door. Trisha's face went pale at the sight of me, Calvin, and Audrey entering together. Angela was already inside, phone recording discreetly. "Security!" Trisha called out, but Calvin just smiled and flashed his contractor's badge. "Mrs. Harper?" A woman in a suit approached Trisha. "I'm a process server. You've been served." She handed over a thick envelope as the room fell silent. Percy grabbed the papers, his face darkening as he read. "This is impossible." "Actually, it's quite possible," I announced, my voice carrying across the stunned crowd. "Would anyone like to hear what my grandfather really wrote before he died?" Audrey stepped forward, holding up the journal. "Or perhaps we should discuss those late-night visits to change the will, Percy." "You have no proof," Trisha snarled. "Oh, but we do." Angela connected her phone to the TV, playing the video of my grandfather's final testimony. His voice filled the room, detailing every manipulation, every scheme. Jalen lunged forward, but Calvin blocked his path. "I wouldn't." "The police are already on their way about those illegal zoning permits." My mother stood in the corner, face ashen as her carefully constructed reality crumbled. "The property transfer has been voided," I announced. "You have 24 hours to vacate my home." "You'll regret this," Trisha hissed as guests began hurrying out. "No," I replied calmly. "You'll regret ever thinking you could steal what was rightfully mine." Calvin leaned close as the room emptied. "Ready to move in? Or is vengeance enough to make you stay away?" The moving truck pulled away, taking the last of Trisha's expensive furniture with it. She couldn't afford to keep most of it anyway, not after the legal fees and contractor bills drained her accounts. Karma had expensive taste. "They left quite a mess," Angela said, surveying the half-demolished kitchen. Jalen's rushed renovations had torn up more than they'd fixed. "Nothing we can't restore," Calvin replied, measuring the walls. "I know some excellent contractors who'll do it right this time." "Let me guess, at a special rate?" I asked. He grinned. "No rate. Consider it my contribution to justice served." Audrey arrived with lunch, spreading sandwiches across the only untouched counter. "Your grandfather would be proud, you know. He always said the house needed someone with a fighting spirit. Speaking of fighting, Angela cut in, Trisha's being investigated for tax fraud now. Seems our evidence opened quite a few doors. My mother's words still echoed. Selfish, troublemaker, just like your father. But looking around at these people, my real family, those words lost their sting. I'm thinking of turning the guest house into a rental property, I said. Know anyone looking for a fresh start, Angela? She smiled, understanding my offer. I might know someone. The afternoon sun streamed through windows that needed washing, illuminating dust and debris and possibility. This house had seen enough darkness, enough schemes. Time to let in the light. I pulled out my new keys, clean, untainted keys, and walked to the front door. Behind me, Calvin and Angela debated paint colors, while Audrey unpacked groceries in my kitchen. My kitchen. And for the first time in years, I stepped into a home that was mine, not just on paper. But in peace,